It's the Extremist movie debate, and tonight we're talking 2005's Stay.
I am Joe.
I'm Ethan, and one of us is going to love it, one of us is going to hate it.
Let the coin decide their fate.
I love it.
I hate it. Hey guys, don't purposefully crash your car on the Brooklyn Bridge. There's spoilers ahead.
All right, and this film currently holds a 27% on Rotten Tomatoes. Ethan, since you love this movie, this first question comes to you. This comes from James Berardinelli of Real Views. James says, Stay is interesting, but it's hard to recommend to anyone but the small group of David Lynch devotees who will inhale anything with a whiff of similarity to their famed auteur's scent. So my question to you is, are there any plausible connections to David Lynch films, or is this reviewer just grasping at straws at this point? You have 1 minute.
I mean, yeah, okay, so you've got some screaming babies in this movie. Sure, I mean, you got some weird visuals, definitely a lot of symbolism, but in this movie it's really overt. David Lynch is never overt. You gotta think for fucking years on what that fucking Eraserhead means all the way. So that's not true. Eraserhead's pretty easy. But let's look at Mulholland Drive. Either way, no, David Lynch, that's kind of that's grasping at straws. Yeah, it's an art movie, and it's a very good art movie. There's some stunning visuals in it. There is a fuck ton of symbolism in it. And it's, can we just get right to the end? So this movie is all like this guy has a car wreck in the beginning, Ryan Gosling, he's dying, and he's in his death throes is envisioning this entire movie. And so, you know, the guy who comes to help him, Ewan McGregor, he's kneeling down over his body, and so Ewan McGregor throughout the entire movie has high waters on. There's a baby crying behind them, so every once in a while you hear a baby crying off screen. Like, stuff like that really just comes together in this movie with multiple viewings, and it's very rare to see a movie that actually has replay value, and I think a lot of this is lost on critics.
Thanks, Ethan. Sorry, Ethan. Thanks. Joe, you have 30 seconds to respond.
No, this movie's just trying to be weird for weird's sake, and that's the issue with the movie. Is it's so easy. It's like, hey, let's just, you know, there's brain activity for 10 minutes after you die, so let's just get this guy in a car wreck. We'll put some really easy set pieces around him, and then we can just make weird cuts and just weird movies and just like call it art. And like that's the thing. Like people try to say that art is subjective, but it's not as objective, and this movie's objectively bad, and it's just trying to be weird and trying to like twist your mind when it's failing at that.
Thanks, Joe. Ethan, you have 15 seconds to respond.
Yeah, how dare those dicks just try to make sense out of the last moments of a living human being? How dare they think that we can ever empathize with something like this? Oh, it's so pretentious of them.
Okay, Joe, you have a final 15 to respond.
No, it's 100% pretentious, and that's the thing. It's like, yeah, you can empathize with dying people. We see that in Hacksaw Ridge really well. Mel Gibson nailed it. Whereas this movie, they just had an idea, and they tried to construct 2 hours around a shitty idea.
All right, Joe, I have to stop you there. Okay, but this next question is for you. This comes from...
Thank you.
You're welcome. This comes from John J. Puchich of...
Damn it.
You just put a coin in your mouth? Fecal matter is probably all over that thing.
There's a thing.
Ugh.
John J. Puchich of Movie Metropolis says, the technical...
I hope you cracked
That's why
that
it failed.
tooth in half.
That was where I went wrong.
John J. Puchich of Movie Metropolis says...
I hope you have to go to the dentist.
John J. Puchich of Movie Metropolis says, the technical virtues of the film may outstrip the content, but it's an entertaining film nonetheless. You might want to stay around for this one. So, do the technical aspects support this film at all, or are they the only worthwhile part of watching this film? You have 1 minute.
Here's the issue. No, they're not. Because the technical aspects is just breaking all of the like film rules. It's like you don't break the 180-degree line, and they do that to try to show like his mental instability. But really, it's just like, oh, you're just breaking all the rules so you can make a shitty-looking movie, and then at the end, take 2 minutes to be like, oh, he was dying. It was all in his head. It was Jacob's ladder. Oh, nothing makes sense. Nothing matters. It's just like Jesus Christ. Like nothing's actually happening in this movie, and that I think that's the like the frustration with it is you can't just construct 90 minutes of like bullshit and then get to the last 2 minutes and try to like inject a whole lot of meaning into it, because that just makes a hollowed movie, and nobody wants to go back and rewatch it just to be like, oh, what did they do? Because they just made a shoddy, shitty movie poorly written and then just said, oh, it's all in his head. So if anything isn't matching up, or if there's any continuity that's not matching up, it's because it's all in his head, and that's why it's shitty. We did it on purpose, and it's just kind of a catch-all for just bad filmmaking.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Ethan, you have 30 seconds to respond.
It's the same reason anybody likes a soliloquy. You want to know what's going on in a character's head, and you want to see that expanded. If you're, anybody who's ever liked To Be or Not to Be from Hamlet, they're gonna like Stay, because in Stay you have an elongated version of 10 minutes of someone's life as they are dying, and you really just want to understand what's all going through their head. Some of it is sort of made up. Some of it is actually happening. Some of it is actual dialogue. Well, I'm just saying, there's some
All right,
liberties
Ethan,
taken.
I'm so sorry, but I got to stop you there. Joe, you have 15 seconds to respond.
So you're talking about like how fascinating it is to see the inner workings of somebody's mind as they're dying, but all you keep doing is you just keep giving plot summaries and you keep giving like scene summaries, but you're not actually talking about like the substance at hand. And for a movie like this, you need that substance to make it worthwhile.
Thank you, Joe. Ethan, you have a final 15 to respond.
Look, that is the plot of this movie. That is what it is about. And when you take away the ending, what this movie is about is a guy trying to figure out why another guy wants to kill himself, which is also an intriguing story to follow along. Once you get past that, after your first viewing, and you understand what it's really about, then the movie starts to be a little bit better.
Thanks for that plot summary again.
Joe, don't be a dick.
Just talking about the fucking movie.
Ethan was just talking about the movie. You guys have 4 minutes to discuss back and forth, and go.
Like, what specifically about this? Like, what substance? Like, what is intriguing about watching this guy? Like, is it
Look,
like
the first time around, you know that things are a little bit off, and you're really into Ryan Gosling
things are off
because he's a little bit, he's a harmless, decent protagonist, and you want to understand Ryan Gosling,
Henry,
whatever his name
he's
is.
Gonna kill himself.
You want to understand.
He's talking about how he killed his family. What are you talking about? Harmless.
You want to understand what's going through his head and why he's in this
How is that
situation.
harmless? First time around, this is a homicidal teen who killed both of his parents and seemingly his fiance or his girlfriend. He is a murderer. He's murdered 3 people.
Yeah,
you're calling him harmless
right
because
away,
he wants to kill himself? Because he's gothic and sad, and that's why you think he's harmless? You think he's just some kind of kid?
Movie. So it's not really fair to take what he says at face value. It's not like
it's not fair to take what's in front of you and what's happening in this movie at face value.
Not in this movie.
Because at the end you find out it's all in his head, and because it's all in his head, it's just you can just make everything else up.
All right,
and it
well
just
then
makes
focus
it
on
great.
Ewan McGregor trying
Lynch.
to be a good psychiatrist. I want to watch this movie about a good psychiatrist. The same reason people read 8,000 Perry Mason novels about just this dude being a lawyer. Like, I want to follow this dude being a psychiatrist. That's interesting to me, and I want to see
him being a psychiatrist. This is him being a psychiatrist. Is him going, oh, I think one of my clients is going to kill himself. Like you were suicidal at one point, and Naomi Watts is like,
yeah, but then they establish a ticking clock. Like, it's going to happen
in
3 days on his 21st birthday. They've got the ticking clock, and now there's a race against time to figure out why and how and where and when and all that crap.
But that's the thing. It's like, if Ryan Gosling has already made up his mind, there's nothing he can do. He's going
to a shrink, so he wants to help himself in some way.
Why would he go to a shrink? That doesn't make any sense.
No, because he wants help. That's why he goes to a shrink.
But he's already made up his mind. So what's the ticking clock?
He wants to go to his original shrink, and then he finds out that it's not his shrink. It's Ewan McGregor instead.
If he actually wants to get help, what's the point of even going to what's the point of making the ultimatum? Because basically you're arguing that there's a ticking clock, but at the same time you're saying, but he wants help, so he doesn't actually want to kill himself. So where's the ticking clock?
You're saying that sick people with a disease can just will it to be so they can be better if they just wish hard enough, put it up on their secret board.
But do you think they would actually set like a date and time like that if they're actively trying to get help? I feel like if they're actively trying to get help and they find themselves in a dark moment,
yeah, man. If you feel like their 21st birthday is when it has to be, yeah, absolutely set the date and the time. I get that, but also seek help to try to stop it.
I think everybody should seek help.
I don't feel like people go into suicide flippantly. I feel like that is a last resort of many awful things happening, and they have thought about it for a long time.
But moving past that, that's not what this movie's actually about. If that's what this movie was actually
about. But that's what this movie's about the first time. I'm just saying, this movie is inarguably fantastic on multiple viewings. So if you're talking about the first viewing being somewhat questionable, I'm just saying the first viewing is still intriguing.
The first viewing is not intriguing or a treat because that's a very hollowed, one-dimensional, storyline that they don't give it the weight it needs. If they're making a movie about that, give it the weight it needs because right now it's thin. That story aspect is very thin, which is kind of frustrating on a first viewing because you're there's a lot lot of good stuff happening here. Why aren't they hitting on that harder? Oh, they wanted a twist. They wanted to Shyamalan this. This is coming after The Sixth Sense and after Unbreakable and after The Village. So all of this.
I mean, technically it's after, but
It's
like
like
a
4 or
decade
5
after.
years
what I'm
out
saying.
from there.
It's like a decade after.
No, because The Village came out in 2004.
The Village was not a twist. The Village was so
It was a
fucking
twist.
predictable.
There was a twist.
If you didn't understand The Village, come on.
Okay, so there was a twist in that movie though, and it was the Shyamalan twist, and that was the big thing.
That was Shyamalan tanking.
The Village. Yeah,
I remember everybody
yeah.
was surprised that The Village was halfway decent.
Yeah,
and
The
then they were
Village
still
was
mad about it.
The Village was.
If you're gonna
his
make a
descent.
comparison, make a comparison to Signs, but Signs really wasn't a twist either. Signs is a pretty dumb fucking twist.
So Shyamalan was on his like descent, but that's why Stay thought it could take it up because the twist was
Joe.
a big thing.
What do you guys
hate
really
you.
feel about this movie?
I hate Jeff.
That's
Learned
fine.
that today.
It's really good. Mark Forster has a lot of attention to detail, but I feel like it's a very unnecessary movie. Sorry, you should talk before I ramble.
No, you can go ahead. You've never seen Jacob's Ladder.
I haven't seen Jacob's
So whatever
Ladder.
Ethan's about to say, take with a grain of salt.
But I watched a shitload of clips and I did a bunch of research because I couldn't find a copy of Jacob's Ladder. But Jacob's Ladder exists. Like I thought that this movie was just a ripoff of Jacob's Ladder, which is it's about a guy who gets bayoneted by one of his own people in Vietnam and then is dying. And this whole movie happens where like years later he's just trying to navigate through New York. It's Tim Robbins, and he's like demons pop out of people's heads and start chasing him and stuff. And so it's like it's really interesting watching this guy like. I would imagine it's really interesting thinking like this guy is running away from demons and these, ethereal forces. Like that's a lot more interesting than this movie's. But boiled down, these movies are exactly the same movie.
Hold on. But I have a question since you're a Jacob's Ladder connoisseur without having actually seen the movie.
You're goddamn right.
Is he embodying all the characters that he's interacting
Yes.
with in Jacob's Ladder?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
In the same way that the stay,
Yes.
that the stay is?
Yes.
As a
Absolutely.
Jacob's Ladder professor, I will say
Jesus,
the answer
you've
is
never
yes.
seen Jacob's Ladder either. Nobody in this room has seen Jacob's Ladder. So here's the thing.
We only talk about Jacob's Ladder because of that podcast.
It's a great movie. Like Stay is a good movie. And like the way Mark Forster did it, and Mark Forster, same thing with Shyamalan, has fucking tanked.
Why do you say it's a good movie though? Because it has such great detail in it?
There's such great
because
detail, and I
you
think-
made a very valid point that this movie has no fucking substance.
I think this movie does have substance. and
What?
It's fun to see. I mean, as dark as this movie
it's a
is,
fun
I think it is.
experiment.
I do. I think it's kind of like Brick. How we I don't know which one's going up first, but kind of
Because
like
now
Brick.
it's going to be Brick.
Kind of like Brick. Like it's this cool idea that I think they executed really well, whereas I don't think Brick was executed as well. So no, I do think it's a fun experiment and it's a fun watch because you're seeing like the inner workings of like somebody in a lot of pain. Like this character is in a lot of pain, and I kind of like you do have that whole suicide thing, but at the same time you have the whole thing about him about to propose to his girlfriend. So like he's doing his best, but like the suicidal thoughts are like keep bubbling up, and that's something he really fears and like he's working against. So like you're seeing his inner workings played out while he embodies these other characters, and it is like the attention to detail does make it fun.
Okay.
And like this, I don't know, this shit's like right up my alley too.
Yeah, this suicidal movie is a fun
Absolutely.
movie. Joe, what would you rank it?
I would
What would
rate,
you rate it?
I would rate this movie like I think this movie is like monstrously underrated. I would rate it a 9 out of 10 with a lot of thunder.
I didn't watch it. I went and saw Snatched instead.
I would give it a 7 and a hell of a lot of thunder. I think that it does lack a little bit in story and relies too heavily on a gimmick. But that's a super cool gimmick, and they put a lot of effort into it, and that is definitely commendable.
Can I request something for our
Yeah.
podcast? Let's do Jacob's Ladder. Let's just do that movie
I'm in.
You mean for this show
for the show.
that was formerly a podcast? Okay, cool. Yeah.
What did I say?
The
For this
webcast,
podcast.
formerly known as the Extremist Movie Debate Podcast.
Yeah, that's what I said. Let's request this for the webcast.
Hey guys, if you
Whatever.
want to hear us argue Jacob's Ladder so we know what we're talking about, please leave a comment below.
And yeah, you can go ahead and request whatever movie you like below, like and subscribe. You can also go ahead and put down a question that you'd like us to say on that episode, and we will probably debate it. And
Thank you, Z, for suggesting this movie.
Thank you, Z.
We appreciate it.
Thanks.
Bye.